So maybe we need to back up just a little bit and tell me what's going on here in St. Louis, because when we think ag tech, for most folks, we might just think it's Monsanto, but we think we just saw some video there from across the street at the Danforth Center. So maybe lay the groundwork and get us all on the same page. What's happening in this town that your company would want to invest in companies that are doing stuff in ag tech?
Yeah, so well, I think you know, one of the reasons why we started here in St. Louis was just our proximity to agricultural resources of the entire Midwest, and St. Louis is really the center of that. With Biogenerator's been operating for I think about 10 years now and has produced some very strong ag tech companies. The partnership has put together great infrastructural resources. But really what we saw is we saw companies not just in St. Louis, but across the world and across the country that really weren't getting the early stage capital that they really needed. And we saw St. Louis as a great spot to begin out on that venture. There's that wealth of knowledge and experience that really brings value to the companies, not just from a financial standpoint, but from a mentorship and a business development standpoint.
And does that hold water from what you're seeing? And I mean, we have very positive people at the table, and we need positive people in our lives. But do we truly have a place on the world stage when it comes to ag?
Well, as Don mentioned, I mean, Bayer has committed to keeping the seeds and traits business here in St. Louis, so we'll continue to attract those types of researchers and everything. We still have the Danforth Center. We have tremendous anchor research institutions in Washington University and the University of Missouri system, so those resources aren't going anywhere.
I think that if this had happened 15 years ago, we would be much more concerned. 15 years ago, Monsanto really was not just the anchor of the plant science community, but you know, it was the only real visible asset that we had. Fast forward 15 years, and we now have a very robust ecosystem in the plant sciences. Across the street from Monsanto, we have the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center, as has been mentioned, which is the world's largest independent research institute focused on plant science. It didn't exist more than 15 years ago. It actually opened up in 2001. There are a lot of startups and organizations like Yield Lab, so we have investors with expertise, industry expertise, is not found in other parts of the country. Yield Lab is a very unique organization. You look at the grower organizations around the country that are headquartered in St. Louis, the American Soybean Association, the National Corn Growers Association. The investors, the entrepreneurs, we have found it to be a great story to tell overseas. You asked about the world stage. So we launched an initiative about 2 years ago called Global STL to attract companies to St. Louis from Israel and now from Ireland and the UK and other places. And the area that we have had the most traction so far has been in the plant sciences, in ag tech. We have 4 Israeli ag tech companies that have put their US headquarters here in St. Louis in the last 2 years. And these are not just run-of-the-mill companies. These are the most sophisticated and respected companies in Israel, which is a hotbed for ag tech itself, innovation. And we're having the same kind of, getting the same kind of attention from Ireland. Yield Lab is also active in Ireland. We found a tremendous amount of world-leading ag tech innovation, and they're looking to St. Louis as the premier place in North America to put a location. Not just because of Monsanto, but because of the Danforth Center and the facilities that they make available to a company, facilities like greenhouses and very high-tech growth chambers and other instrumentation that would never be available to them in any other setting. Go ahead.
Oh, no doubt things are much better than they were 10 years ago. We have organizations like Yield Lab, we've got a couple of VC firms, venture capital firms, we've got a number of angel investors. But at the same time, in Danforth Center, I mean, one of the early investors in a lot of these efforts was Monsanto. And when the corporate headquarters is somewhere else, those decisions won't be made in St. Louis. Those same connections on, you know, where those philanthropic dollars are going to go won't necessarily be made in St. Louis. Obviously, Bayer will still have an interest in growing the ecosystem here because some of those companies, those smaller startups, could eventually be acquired, but it'll be more removed.